This is Right to Life Radio with John Gerardi on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400, a production of the Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host, John Gerardi.
So we're going to talk about the election, and we're going to talk about the big pro-life issues at play in this election. We've got a big article that we're going to have published up on rtlcc.org, written by yours truly, about trying to give you a comprehensive view of all of the issues, all of the pro-life issues that are at stake in the presidential election. And there are a lot. And there are a lot that people don't widely know about or don't widely understand. And what we're here to do today on this show is to dig into some of the lesser well-known but enormously impactful issues that hang on the question of who is elected president of the United States in 2020, but also who retains the majority in the House or who has the majority in the Senate. So we're going to dig into all of that stuff today. John Gerardi with you. Jonathan Keller, unfortunately, had travel stuff, and we couldn't make the schedules work, so he's not going to be joining us today. But thank you so much for joining. Today is actually my birthday. That's right. I'm 33 years old. I'm now as old as Jesus, so there you go. Dante, when he was 33 years old, went on a mystical journey to hell, purgatory, and heaven, and I'm doing a radio show. All right. So, less interesting than Dante. All right. We're going to talk today. So let's dig into the election. Now, most pro-lifers, most people who for whom abortion is a major driving topic, for most of us, we get that elections are important. And we get that the presidency is in many ways uniquely important. Right? The president can do a lot when it comes to abortion. One of the key things that a lot of pro-lifers are very, very much aware of is the Supreme Court. The president nominates justices to the Supreme Court, and the Senate confirms justices to the Supreme Court. So elections for the presidency and the Senate are really, really important. What kinds of judges or justices to the Supreme Court will the president nominate, and will senators vote to confirm? But there's a lot of issues that are outside of that, issues where the president has regulatory power, issues where the president can issue executive orders. So one of the things that the role of the presidency is that he is the chief executive official in the federal government. And as many of you know, the Constitution has three branches of government: the legislative branch of government in Article 1 of the Constitution, which writes all of our laws; the executive branch of government, which enforces all of our law; and the judicial branch, which interprets the law, resolving cases and controversies. So the president is the head of the executive branch. He enforces the law. And all of the officers inferior to him, below him, appointed by him, within all of the various federal regulatory agencies, whether that's the Department of Health and Human Services or the Department of Education or the military, all of that stuff, the federal law enforcement agencies like the FBI or the Drug Enforcement Agency, the intelligence agencies, all law enforcement, all legal prosecutorial authority, all legal enforcement through regulatory agencies, it's all under the president. And the president has the ability to interpret federal statutes, especially when they're sort of ambiguous one way or another. He has the authority to enforce federal laws in ways that Congress gives him space to make determinations. Okay, sometimes Congress passes a law and says, well, for this particular question, it's really complicated, so we're not going to set the rules, but we're going to authorize the Department of Health and Human Services to set the rules. And what that means is that the president can set those rules because he appoints the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. Okay, so the president has enormous authority to make law through regulation, to issue executive orders, etc. And there are lots of things that the president can do when it comes to abortion. And you see there are various policies that when a Republican president is in office, they are set one way. When a Democrat president is in office, they are set another way. And with abortion, there are a lot of these that have to do with abortion. When Republican presidents get in office, many of them put in place this thing called the Mexico City policy. The Mexico City policy prevents federal funds from going to foreign non-governmental organizations that do abortions overseas. For example, Planned Parenthood International. When Democrats are in office, that money flows to them again. When Republicans are in office, they put restrictions on abortions happening at military hospitals. When Democrats are in office, they allow those abortions to happen, et cetera. So there are all kinds of, when Republicans are in office, they put restrictions on federal funding for certain kinds of research that utilizes the body parts of aborted children. When Democrats are in office, they put in other policies. So this stuff, dings back and forth depending on whether a Republican or a Democrat's in office. But there's a very important issue this election that has to do with regulation, and it centers around abortion pills, so-called medication abortion. And it's a really critical issue that we're going to dig into today. So let's go into the history of this. Medication abortion or pill abortion. I don't like using the term medication abortion, which is sort of the preferred language of the left, because abortion is not medication. It's not actually solving a problem with the female body, which is what medicine is supposed to do. It's supposed to correct problems. Abortion is actually killing another living human body. So it's not really, properly speaking, medication. Anyway, pill abortion is a process that takes place over the course of about 2 or 3 days, involves the use of 2 medications. The first is called Misoprostol, or RU486. A woman ingests this in the context of a clinic. It's just a pill that's ingested in the clinical context under the supervision of some kind of healthcare professional. And Misoprostol basically cuts off the food supply for the baby so that the baby will die in the womb. The next drug that's taken, this is taken at home, is called Misoprostol, and this basically induces a miscarriage artificially so that the baby is expelled. Now, there are all kinds of health and safety risks that are involved with mifepristone. There have been thousands of women who've been hospitalized for, particularly for hemorrhaging, as a result of taking mifepristone. The side effects, while not terribly common, are severe when they happen. And there have been about 24 women who have died from using medication abortion. It's a serious thing. It can be a very painful thing. It can be a very emotionally difficult thing to go through. Now, how did one of the things we don't realize, we just sort of accept that, well, this is how abortions are done, and it's increasingly abortion via pill is the dominant way that abortions are done for the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. It's increasingly the way abortion's being done nationally, because it's much simpler to do it that way. You don't need to get a doctor to come in order to do it. It's restricted to the first trimester. There are fewer complications that way than if you try to do normal surgical abortion methods. And in fact, in a lot of countries of Europe, it's almost the exclusive way in which abortion is done. So how did this come to be, though? How did it get on the market? Well, the way it got on the market is through the FDA, through the regulatory power of the federal government. All right. In the dying months of the Clinton administration, President Clinton rushed through the FDA an approval for medication abortion. It was in his sort of lame duck months, his last months as president, and he had the FDA rush this through. It was obviously a politically driven push for something that the abortion industry is like, this will make abortion so much simpler, so much easier, so much more widespread. And what happened during the Bush administration? Nothing. No rescinding of that FDA approval, no rolling back of that FDA approval. Nothing happens during the Bush administration. Well, now we get to, this is either the last year of the Trump administration or maybe we got 4 more years after this, but obviously the last year of the first term. And the left right now, the pro-choice left, is sharpening their knives. And they're sharpening their knives about this topic of medication abortion. What they desperately want to do, and what people like Ezekiel Emanuel, who's Barack Obama's top advisor for healthcare questions, and Dr. Daniel Grossman, who's one of the leading pro-choice public policy advocates in the country. He's at UCSF, at their Bixby Center for Reproductive Science, which is just this hub of evil, of pro-choice advocacy and also of practical education for people doing late-term abortions, getting fetal tissue samples to be used for scientific research, i.e. the body parts of aborted children for scientific research. These guys are advocating for the FDA to deregulate pill abortion. Basically, to take off the minimal restrictions that still exist on abortion pills. So right now, the one big restriction that exists is that you have to go into a clinic to take the first pill. Okay, you have to go into the clinic. And the left has been roaring over the unfairness of this. Okay, remember in California, we passed SB 24. This was last year. This was the bill that's going to require medication abortion or abortion pills to be available at the student health centers of every CSU and UC in the state. It's going to require all of these CSUs and UCs to build, to have ultrasound capacities. They're going to redo the whole student health centers of every CSU and UC in order to provide abortion there. They're going to stick ultrasound machines in every CSU and UC, not for prenatal care, but for abortion provision. The reason they're doing that, the reason why they passed that law, which they fought for years, the reason why they passed SB 24 is quite simple. It's because of this argument that, it's such a burden for young college-aged women to have to drive to an abortion clinic to get their medication abortion, to take that first pill. It's such a burden. It's so onerous. This idea of having to go to a healthcare provider, which is, a normal thing that every adult has to go through. And the advocates for SB 24 talked ad nauseum about, oh my goodness, it's so onerous to make these students do that, to have to take public transportation. It could take an hour and and like having these debates over, different CSUs and UCs they're 30 whole minutes, or 20 whole minutes away by car from an abortion clinic. Meanwhile, Fresno State is like 1 minute away from an abortion clinic. And this notion was access. You're limiting access by insisting that women go into the clinic. That's what you're doing. You're limiting abortion access. And as we know, abortion access is the big byword for the pro-choice left of today. They want abortion to be safe, legal, and universally accessible. Not safe, legal, and rare. They don't say that anymore. They want it to be safe, legal, and accessible, meaning if you can't afford abortion, have the state pay for it for you. If you can't drive to an abortion, have the abortion come to you. And that's what the modern-day pro-choice left wants to do through the Biden administration. So what they want to do, they're pushing for it right now. And it's not going anywhere because the Trump administration's in place, and they're not going to let the FDA do this. But what they're pushing for is to take away the requirement that first abortion pill, RU486, Misoprostol, take away the requirement that be ingested in the clinic. If they are successful, and I want to make it clear that I don't think I'm overstating this, okay? If they are successful in saying that you can take the abortion pill at home, you can take both the abortion pills at home. To have an abortion, you never even have to leave your house. That's kind of what they want to set up. They want to set up a scenario where people can access telemedicine services to get a prescription for a chemical abortion. They want to set up systems so that chemical abortion can be shipped to women's homes, where they can take both of the pills in the clinical context without having had an ultrasound, and then have the abortion in the home. That's what they want. It could completely change the whole face of this country as it relates to the provision of abortion services. It will make the abortion clinic obsolete. It could be a total revolution in this country, a enormous expansion of the accessibility, the availability, the ease of use for women to have abortions. It will make it so easy, take away all these kinds of barriers of entry for people to get abortions, and I cannot help but think massively increase the number of abortions. That is one of the things that hinges on this election. We'll talk about some pro-life efforts to stop this coming up next. This is Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400, rtlcc.org. Just tap your mic real quick.
Well, I'm not.
Right. Jerry Jeff Walker. I think this is Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. Maybe it's just him by himself. Anyway, this is Mr. Bojangles. Thank you all so much for listening to Right to Life Radio, a production of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org, if you want to follow along. Hey, 40 Days for Life is getting started soon. We'll have some information for you coming up soon about what we're going to do. We're trying to figure out how we're doing a kind of COVID-safe 40 Days for Life and want to encourage people to participate in any way they can. Anyway, rtlcc.org is the place to go. All right, we've been talking about the push by the left to deregulate medication abortion. The only thing Democrats want to deregulate is abortion. Anyway, they want to basically make it easier for women to have medication abortion. And what they basically want to do is make the abortion clinic, the brick and mortar abortion clinic, obsolete. Here is where the abortion clinic of tomorrow is going to be. I'm waving, for those of you listening on the radio, I'm waving my iPhone around. They want the smartphone to be the abortion clinic of the future. This is where abortions will take place in the future if they get what they want, if the FDA deregulates abortion. Because here's how it's going to happen. And by the way, if Joe Biden's elected president, this will happen. Okay? You can guarantee it. His healthcare advisors are all pushing for it. Every Democrat in the country is pushing for this right now. This is going to happen. So let me describe what's going to happen. Biden gets into office. His appointee at the FDA will take into account the recommendations by various pro-choice left-wing healthcare professionals that the current restrictions on medication abortion, namely that a woman has to go to a clinic and take the first pill in the context of the clinic, that is unnecessary. So she can take the 2 abortion pills, the first pill, which cuts off the baby's food supply, allows the baby to die. The second, which is taken a day or 2 after, that basically induces a miscarriage and expels the baby. That both of those can be taken at home. Right now, you have to take the first one in the context of the clinic. The left hates this requirement because they think it makes it difficult for people to get to abortion providers. And new changes in technology have led to this new setup that they can use. So, how will the abortion of tomorrow take place if Joe Biden's elected and if he does what the Democrats tell him to do? A woman will take a pregnancy test, find out she's pregnant. She will get her phone. She'll download an app from an abortion provider like Planned Parenthood. And within seconds, she will be chatting through a kind of text message-based app. It looks like a series of text messages. She'll be chatting with a Planned Parenthood nurse practitioner over a HIPAA-secured server. Okay? So this HIPAA-secured server, basically, it allows you to exchange healthcare information in a confidential way over a server that has certain security procedures in it. Chatting through this app the woman will get a prescription for abortion pills. Now, in some states, you can already do that, but the woman still has to go to the clinic to have the abortion. And in some rural parts of the country, that's difficult. In some parts of the country where Planned Parenthood hasn't established as many clinics or abortion providers don't have as many clinics, that's more difficult, etc. But if you don't have to go into the clinic, first of all, it takes away a lot of the safety precautions. There's no ultrasound to make sure that your baby's the right age. If the baby's too late in the pregnancy, it increases the risks and complications, etc. So it's going to be less safe. But basically, if you don't have to go into the clinic, here's what Planned Parenthood can do for you. If you don't have to go into the clinic to take that pill, you can have the pills shipped to your house or sent to your local pharmacy, or you could pick them up, or you could DoorDash, whatever, okay? So you could not leave your house to make the appointment, not leave your house to have the consultation, not leave your house for an initial a checkup, not leave the house for actually taking the abortion pill. You can have your abortion entirely done at home with no pre-checkup, no post-checkup, nothing. And have abortion mailed to your house. This can make abortion as readily accessible as an Amazon Prime package, shipped right to your door. And this is an issue in this presidential election. This presidential election will decide whether that's going to happen, because the left is already right now pushing to make that a reality. They are pushing right now to have the FDA deregulate abortion, and the only reason it's not happening is because the Trump administration's in office. If there's a change in administration, this will happen. We're going to talk about some Republican attempts to roll this all back with Ted Cruz. Well, we're not going to have Ted Cruz here, but we're going to read a letter he wrote to the FDA. That's coming up next. This is the Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400. Kenny Rogers. This is one of his more psychedelic songs. Those of you who are fans of The Big Lebowski will remember this song. It is an equally trippy song in The Big Lebowski. Anyway, Right to Life Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. Apparently some yard work on my mind. Now, I want to keep going with this discussion about the FDA and regulation of medication abortion, because it's sneakily one of the most important issues in this election is what the next president is going to do with regulation by the FDA of abortion. And if Biden's elected, it's quite likely that chemical abortion, pill abortion is going to be deregulated so that basically abortion pills can be shipped to you legally in the mail, and abortion can be as accessible to anyone in the country as accessible as an Amazon Prime package. On the other hand, President Trump has kind of maintained the current status quo of keeping abortion pills on the market. But there's now a push since COVID has started, the pro-choice side has urged that we need to take away the regulations on medication abortion, the chief regulation being that you have to go into the clinic to take the first of the two pills. So the left is pushing for that right now during coronavirus. Basically, they're saying, look, it's unreasonable to expect women to go into a clinic to take this first pill. We don't think it's necessary. And in fact, it's so unnecessary that it's an unconstitutional infringement on their right to have an abortion. And there's actually one federal judge in Maryland who ruled this way and said this FDA regulation is unconstitutional, which is unbelievable to me. It's the first FDA regulation that any Democrat-appointed judge has ever thought was unconstitutional. So basically, this is the push by the left that's very active now during coronavirus, using coronavirus as an excuse for something they've wanted to do for ages, which is to try to make abortion as accessible as an Amazon Prime package, where you get on your phone, you can chat with a nurse practitioner, you can get a prescription for abortion pills on the phone, you can order the abortion pills, you can have them shipped to your house, you can take them at home, you never have to leave your house, and you don't have to have an abortion clinic nearby in order to have an abortion. So, to their credit, some pro-life members of Congress are starting to push back. So I've got here a story. A group of Republican senators led by Ted Cruz are trying to basically trying to fight back. They're trying to urge the FDA to take abortion pills off the market because they are unsafe. This would be an unbelievable victory if Republicans could pull this off. Now, it would immediately get challenged in the courts, and it would go to the Supreme Court, undoubtedly. But if this were successful, let me read the story. Okay, so this is from National Review, written by Alexandra DeSanctis. Go Irish. She's a fellow Notre Dame grad. Here's what she says. Exclusive. GOP senators ask the FDA to classify the abortion pill as dangerous. This afternoon, a group of 20 Republican senators, led by Texas Senator Ted Cruz, sent a letter to the Food and Drug Administration calling on Commissioner Stephen Hahn to, quote, classify the abortion pill as an imminent hazard to the public health that poses, quote, a significant threat of danger and remove this pill from the U.S. market. According to a copy of the letter provided exclusively to National Review, the senators applaud the FDA for instituting and attempting to enforce safety protocols around the chemical abortion pill, also known as RU486 or Misoprostol. During the COVID-19 pandemic, abortion advocates and providers have undertaken a legal campaign to alter the FDA's risk evaluation mitigation strategy. This is basically the regulations around pill abortions that say you have to go into the clinic to take it. For the abortion pill, which requires that a healthcare professional prescribe the drug to women in person rather than via telemedicine. The pandemic, they argue, has made it more difficult for women to obtain chemical abortion drugs, and therefore the FDA safety protocols are a violation of the supposed right to abortion. So they're not just saying that we want this to be deregulated because it's a good idea. We want women to be able to get their abortion pills in the mail because we think it's an unconstitutional violation of their civil rights to force them to go to a clinic. That's the argument they're making. I don't know about you, but I've had to go, I've got 4 kids. I've had to go to several doctor's appointments with my children since the lockdown began with all kinds of annoying, dumb, onerous restrictions. Had to take my kid Jack for a dermatologist thing because he bonks his head a lot against he bonks the back of his head against the slats of his crib. I guess it's some kind of coping thing that a large percentage of kids do. Anyway, he's got some weird thing on the back of his head. It's not a big deal. But I had to go to this dermatologist appointment, and he's screaming because he's terrified of doctors and hasn't gone outside practically because nothing's open. Anything outside of our grid of church, grocery store, whatever. He's now terrified of all human beings, I guess, and doesn't like people in masks. Anyway, so that's great. People have had to go to hospitals and clinics for healthcare appointments during coronavirus. This isn't an unconstitutional infringement on someone's right. It's amazing how abortion is the one healthcare procedure that is somehow, the one. You have a right to access abortion more so than you have a right to access any other kind of healthcare provision possible, to such an extent that the inconvenience of going to a clinic is now a grave question of constitutional law. Anyway, enough of the John Gerardi rant. Ted Cruz writes, "We believe this rogue judicial activism is a gross breach of the separation of powers, undermining the FDA's statutory authority to ensure drug safety while recklessly endangering American women and children," the senators state, calling it an opportunistic ploy to expand access to abortion under the fallacy that the regulations the FDA has impose an undue burden on women's rights. The letter also notes that President Bill Clinton's administration, thank you, Ted Cruz, for mentioning this. The letter also notes that President Bill Clinton's administration rushed the abortion pill through the FDA approval process under political pressure, saying it, quote, is nakedly obvious that the abortion industry and its allies in the media, billionaire philanthropic circles, and special interest groups have wanted an unregulated and demedicalized abortion pill since the moment the FDA first approved it in 2000. We believe this deadly pill should never have been approved, yet the abortion industry was politically rewarded with an accelerated approval process normally reserved for high-risk drugs that address life-threatening illnesses like AIDS, the senators write. As you are surely aware, pregnancy is not a life-threatening illness, and the abortion pill does not cure or prevent any disease. In its conclusion, the letter points out that Misoprostol poses a higher risk of complication than surgical abortion in the beginning of pregnancy, and somewhere between 5% and 7% of women require follow-up surgical abortions. That's the thing. That's the thing that nobody talks about when they're talking about the safety risks of a medication abortion. I remember Dr. Daniel Grossman, who's this huge pro-choice advocate and abortion doctor, works at the UCSF Bixby Center. It was in the hearing room for almost every hearing on SB 24, which is the bill that requires pill abortions to be available at the health centers of all the CSUs and UCs in California. Dr. Grossman would come to these hearings to advocate for pill abortion, and he'd say that it's safer than Tylenol. That's what he would say. And he would never mention the fact that between 5 and 7% of pill abortions, they don't work. You need a follow-up surgical abortion because, not everything is expelled from the woman's body entirely. He didn't talk about the fact that, the side effects, while relatively rare from pill abortions, when they happen can be very severe. Okay, thousands of women have been hospitalized from side effects from pill abortions. 24 women have died. Okay, all of the side effects that you can see from a miscarriage can also take place in a pill abortion. All right, that's what it is. It's more or less an artificially induced miscarriage. So all of the safety things you would see or you would think of from a miscarriage, that's what you have. And there's also the possibility that not every adverse health outcome is getting reported, because you might have a case where a woman doesn't report that she has these adverse health outcomes, etc. Anyway, the letter from the article from National Review talking about this Cruz letter goes on. 5 and 7% of women require follow-up surgical abortions. While we support the FDA's continued right to defend the regulations around chemical abortion right now, to monitor dangerous clinical studies and to shut down illegal websites, the senators write, these measures alone fail to protect the thousands of women harmed even by compliant usage of this drug, or the millions of children killed. In the House, Representative Jody Hice, a Republican from Georgia, led more than 70 congressmen in sending a similar letter to the FDA. And you can find the full text of it. If you want to read that, twitter.com/FresnoJohnny. That's my Twitter account. Or I'll post this also to the Right to Life of Central California Twitter account, twitter.com/RightToLifeCA. But this is really important, and it raises for me a couple of important questions. The Democrats, I think, when it comes to doing pro-choice stuff, they seem smarter than the Republicans are when it comes to doing pro-life stuff. They have their stuff together, if you will. I was going to say they have their crap together. I'll say that. There you go. FCC compliant to say that. They see the possibilities for expanding abortion through the administrative state, through regulatory power. And they saw in the waning years of the Clinton administration, if we can get if we can get, we see that, it's a toss-up this election here. We don't know if George W. Bush is going to win or Al Gore is going to win, but let's get pill abortion rushed through the FDA. Let's get it through right now. And we'll use the procedures that are used for approving, life-saving treatments to help, prevent AIDS or things like that. Let's use those emergency procedures. Let's ram this through. And they move the ratchet. They move the ratchet one way. And that ratchet seems to only go one way, because even though the George W. Bush administration probably would have had some wherewithal to say, hold up. We rushed through that approval for the abortion bill. We rushed that approval. We want to, pump the brakes here. That was inappropriate. That didn't follow appropriate guidelines, blah, blah. But no, the George W. Bush administration didn't do that. For 8 years, they sat on their hands, didn't have the FDA even look at it. And furthermore, George W. Bush appointed a pro-choice guy to be the head of the HHS. So, what the heck are we doing? And it goes to show that the priorities of some of these Republicans in office it's just not, abortion was just not enough of a priority for them. Now, meanwhile, you can make sort of the same criticism of the Trump administration. I mean, it's now it's 2020. We're in the dying months of this. Pro-choicers have been pushing. We have known that the abortion pill is dangerous because of the evidence we've collected for the entirety of the Bush administration and the entirety of the Obama administration. We had all this data 4 years ago when Trump was first elected. So why didn't we push the FDA? Well, now we got these Republican senators calling for the Trump administration and the FDA to take abortion pills off the market. Well, where the heck were those calls 4 years ago? I mean, I applaud Cruz for doing something, but I applaud Ted Cruz for pushing for this and doing something. But why weren't we pushing for this on day one? I mean, this just seems like such a clear way, and this only requires regulatory power. You don't need a vote in Congress to do this. The president can do this. Okay, the president and the executive officials under him can just do this. All right? What was the planning that was done during the transition between the election and President Trump getting inaugurated? Was there a strategy session of, okay, here are all the pro-life things we can do through the administrative state. Here are all the pro-life things we can do through legislation. Here are all the pro-life things. Like, why are we only doing this right now? Okay, and the left has been pushing to deregulate pill abortion for years. So I applaud Ted Cruz, and I applaud the other Republicans who signed on to this letter. Tom Cotton from Arkansas, a couple of other people, a bunch of other people did. James Lankford from Oklahoma, the members of the House who signed on to it. I applaud all of them. But at the same time, what are we doing? Why are we pushing for this in 2020 when we don't even have we only have, January's like 4 months away. January 20th is when either Trump is going to start his second term or Joe Biden's going to be sworn in as the new president. This is something we should have been working on for years. All right, we'll be back with our closing segment. More of the key issues in this election when we come back. Got some great jams, does Conway Twitty. One of my friends from college, his dad ran into Conway Twitty in a gas station in rural Iowa. And that's my 1, 2, 3 degrees of separation from Conway Twitty. There you go. Thank you so much for listening to Right to Life Radio, a production, as always, of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. Thank you to all of you who are supporting our 300 Club. We keep getting new people signing up for the 300 Club, and we very deeply appreciate it. It's such a joy, and I want to read off some of the names of 300 Club members. I'm going to start from the A's this time, just to acknowledge a bunch of people. Rosa Alvarenga, David Alvarez, Tom and Lori Anderson, Vitalina Armas, Rick and Janice Ashodian, Timothy Admajian, Brian Bedrosian. Oh, we got all the Armenians all together. Denise Benker, Doug Bennick, Myron Mary Betancourt, Mary Bishop, the Most Reverend Joseph Brennan, the Bishop of the Diocese of Fresno. That's right. He supports our 300 Club. The 300 Club, by the way, for those who don't know, this is a great way to support Right to Life in Central California. $300 a year, $25 a month. A lot of you are signed up for streaming services like Netflix and things that are zapping, money out of your credit card every month. Why not give to us instead? Anyways, let's keep going with the list. Vera Bryan, Mark and Suzanne Burns, Sally Caglia, William and Sharon Carrasco, John and Veronica Coelho, Bill and Kathy Coit, Marianne Contreras, Cross City Church, Alicio and Nivea Cuellar. Our best wishes to their daughter Julia, who is starting law school and who just got married. Congratulations, Julia. The Cuellars. Brian and Lisa Delana, Stephen DeLorimer, Paul Dictos, Matt and Julianne Diener, Val Dornay, Richard Downs, Larry and Carol Eddy, Debbie Erickson, Tom Evans, Richard and Mary Ella Fairbank, Donna Fleming, Barbara Fletcher, Shirley Folland, etc. We'll keep going with the list. We'll have more of the list. We do a bit of the list thanking everybody every single week. So, we got all the way through the F's, so I think that's pretty good. Anyway, thank you to all of you who support the 300 Club. And if you want to support the 300 Club, go to rtlcc.org, and there's the blue 300 Club button right there. You can just click on that, and you can set up your contribution, and it's totally awesome. So thank you. If all of you listening did that, we'd never even have to have a fundraiser. So that would be fantastic. So thank you so much to all of you who have supported us and who continue to support our work at Right to Life of Central California. Now, the point of this show was basically to highlight, a lot of pro-life, because we talked extensively about the FDA and their ability to regulate abortion pills or deregulate abortion pills, and that is a key issue. Basically, the Democrats want to deregulate pill abortion, chemical abortions, medication abortion, if you will. They want to deregulate it so that it is as easy to access, as easy to get as an Amazon Prime package. Basically, that it can be shipped to your house. You don't even need to leave your home in order to get it. And this would change the whole face of abortion in this whole country. And that hinges on this presidential election and probably any subsequent presidential election. I mean, the sad thing is that, this is going to happen as soon as a Democrat's elected. Someday a Democrat's going to get elected to the White House, and this is going to happen. So it's more than just the Supreme Court. It's more than just, stopping bad legislation. It's more than that. It's more than the Mexico City policy or embryonic stem cell funding. These are things that people know something about. They know the Supreme Court's important for abortion. But it's beyond that. The president has so much power over the entire landscape of federal regulatory entities, whether it's the FBI, the CIA, and so many things that impact health, like the Department of Health and Human Services. It's such a huge entity that has its fingers in so much stuff. The FDA, the National Institutes of Health. There are so many ways in which the President of the United States, his policies, the people that he puts in power, can have just this enormous and outsized impact on what happens in this country as it relates to abortion. He has such power to shape abortion in this country. And again, if Vice President Biden is elected, he has the ability, just through this one FDA change, this one regulatory change at the FDA, to completely change the whole landscape of abortion in this country, to make abortion clinics obsolete, to make it universally accessible to anybody so that they can get an abortion. That's what we're dealing with here. So when you vote, think hard, think through all of the issues that are at play. understand this is a very important. Obviously, every presidential election is very important. I'm not going to be like some people on talk radio and say this is the most important election of our lifetimes. Well, I don't know if it's the most important of our lifetimes, but it's pretty dang important. Vote pro-life. It's going to do it for us. This has been Right to Life Radio.